Hey everybody, and welcome to this first official instance / episode / whatever of the Q&A, which is a weird way to phrase it. I'm joined by Joris and Vale from the dev team, and we will do our damnedest to answer as much of your questions as we can. Keep in mind that we're answering this at a point in development that is very much subject to change. So any of the answers we give today might be different in the future, but that's why we have a Discord, and that's why we're very open to questions. So with that said, gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having me.
Sweet. Okay, let us start with the general questions. We have divided this into sections, just for ease of answering. So we're going to start with questions that are more of the general nature. That we're, of course, capable of answering. Let's start with a doozy-ish. Will there be early name reserving for Ember Sword?
Yes, we will have early name reserving at some point, probably pre-alpha time, roughly in that range. But when exactly that will be, I don't know yet. But yes, we will have name reserve.
Fair enough. Will there be a character limit on names?
Yeah.
Probably.
You don't want to get murdered by like 95 zeros and ones in a row, right?
Yeah, no, we don't want the entire Bible as a name.
Exactly.
Only half.
The good half.
Yeah.
The one where he carries heavy objects and stuff, I love that part.
Yeah. Best part.
Apologies to any Christians. I'm Eastern European, I can say these things. Will players be able to go inside of buildings, for example, shops and things of that nature?
I mean, the big issue with going into player-owned buildings is that not every player will own a house. So it wouldn't make a lot of sense to use a ton of resources on it, even though it'd be super cool. But going inside larger buildings in villages and such is definitely something that we'd love to add, and it just adds a whole different level of personality to the world. So.
For sure.
Yeah, buildings in the cities you can enter, play around land, maybe not, probably not.
For now, at least.
For now, yeah, of course. I mean, with how dynamic we're making the world and with how much we're going to be spending post-launch and supporting it, I can imagine that it's definitely something we can have on the table. But in the initial stages of the game, most likely not.
Yeah.
These were the sort of general questions we selected. Now we are moving on to something meaty, the gameplay. A lot of people have been asking about how the combat is going to work and various facets of said combat. And I've cherry-picked some questions from that nature, and we're going to go through them now. Starting with, will there be any unarmed skills in the game?
So there's not a specific skill for unarmed combat in that sense, but when you're not wearing any weapons, it makes sense that your character punches or something, so you can at least do something. But there's not a specific skill tree specifically dedicated to unarmed combat, no.
I mean, depending on your strength, you might be able to take on a bear. Who knows?
Is as high as it goes? I mean, it's sort of an interesting notion of I remember it was sprung from a discussion of somebody just being thrown into the ultra deep with no equipment and seeing whether through pure skill alone they'll be able to exit. But I imagine there's other ways you can prove your merit in Ember Sword without going naked into the jungle. Like an insane
I hope
Kubrick
so.
movie. Certainly do. Will every character / weapon have a dodge skill?
Yes.
It's more of a mobility sort of based question. How well will you be able to avoid damage in combat through skill alone?
So,
go ahead.
Yeah, all right. So every weapon type has its own skill tree or set of skills that you can use. And then there's a general one which has dodge and a speed buff and things like that. So yes, every player can dodge, and then there are specific weapon skills that are associated with a two-handed weapon, for example.
Yeah, and we also are considering when you're dodging and weaving out of combat that you'd be able to switch weapons on the go. So this way you'd add a new level of mastery. So going from melee heavy hitting to suddenly firing your bow from long range. So yeah, dodging will play a huge role in combat without a doubt.
Ooh, sweet. Okay, well, I'm very big on Dark Souls, as listeners of the podcast know. And the thing in Dark Souls, at least in the first one, were iframes. Will those be a thing in our combat?
So we currently don't have iframes, and I don't know if it makes a lot of sense with latency. So for example, if you have like 200 milliseconds latency to the server, and then you dodge, and then the server doesn't know you dodged until like 200 milliseconds later, you'd still get hit, within that delay. So I don't know if it makes a lot of sense in an MMO necessarily. So currently we don't have iframes, but we like there's room for improvement there if it does prove to be helpful.
Well, the nice part about this is that subsequent Souls games, if I can make that comparison again, for the most part almost did away with iframes and were very hitbox specific, which is certainly a fantastic way to go about it. It actually introduces a higher skill ceiling, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To
just get your timing right.
Yeah, just get good, scrub. That's all we're asking. We're asking for you to come into the game and be an expert. You have 30 days to get good, otherwise you're banned. I will personally enforce that. I do not sleep. It falls within my job description. Peep me on LinkedIn, you'll see. This next one is something that I found genuinely interesting. We are very big on cosmetics, as everybody following Ember Sword closely will know. And by their nature, cosmetics alter the appearance of armor, weapons, what have you. And that might be... I don't want to say a problem, but certainly an aspect to be considered in PvP. So a lot of games I've heard circumvent that issue by disabling cosmetics in PvP so that people can, see what armor you have, see what weapons you have, so they can discern what skills you have at your disposal so they can react accordingly. How are we handling cosmetics in PvP then?
I mean, so since it's open world PvP, suddenly switching gear might look strange. But another thing is, since we have armored weapon classes, distinguishing between like a heavy player and a light player might not actually be that big an issue. But I think, and George might be able to comment on this with more detail, I don't think we'll change the visible equipment unless it becomes a big deal.
Yeah, so the thing is, right, if in PvP you have like your opponent has a sword that inflicts poison damage and you're very susceptible to poison damage, then you want to be able to see that so you can stay away from that person. If they're wearing a cosmetic, you can't tell. So it does make it less competitive. So the question at the end of the day is, like, how competitive do you really want to make the game, right? If you're really focusing on competitiveness, then obviously you should hide the cosmetics. Personally, I'm more of a proponent for hiding the cosmetics because I think it becomes fairer that way, and you can actually, you have more information as the player. Currently, they're not being hidden, but it really just depends on pre-alpha testing, right? Like if people say, like, this is shit, I can't play PvP because I don't know what my opponent's wearing, then obviously we should change it. So it really depends on the feedback we get early on.
Yeah, of course, it is very dependent on what people say, so be active on Discord, guys. Tell us what you think.
I mean, that goes for a lot of the questions in general, and a lot of the gameplay-related issues.
I mean, everything's up for change, of course. Like, there's no point in being pig-headed and forcing some gameplay element through that just nobody wants. So yeah, everything's up for changing, and a lot of it is dependent on the input we receive. So definitely, like, be active on the Discord and just poke us. Like, we're happy to hear your input.
Absolutely. I'm happy to read it at 11:38 in the evening when I'm desperately trying to find something to do before I go to sleep. So, yeah. Moving back to the questions. It's a weird segue. We have revealed that there will be verticality in the game in terms of jumping. How much does verticality play a role in creating the game world?
I think it's definitely a me question. Yeah. But yeah. So we'll have a lot of jumping, and it'll play a really big role. The thing is, in MMOs, a lot of MMOs don't use it very practically, or they try to and then have mixed success, like Guild Wars 2, where the jumping puzzles were super finicky and it was really hard to judge distance. But that's very much a camera issue. In Ember Sword, though, we have for now we have a fixed camera, and that lends to it being a bit more easy to tell. Another thing is that we're taking a note out of the traditional action RPG books. So, like, mastering jumping will not only help you in exploring the world, but also in combat, since your attacks will be affected by whether or not you're in the air. So we have like a jumping skill which just allows you to get further, and it's gonna be interesting to see how people use it. But on a more environmental note, we will have places where verticality plays a big role. So you'll have a larger field of view. You'll have the ability to spot your opponent way before they can, so you can jump and gank them from above, if that's what you're into.
Yeah, that was one of the follow-up questions, actually. Will there be some sort of advantage somebody could gain through verticality?
Yeah.
Ooh, I hope that doesn't anger somebody when they get Assassin's Creed from the clouds.
At the same time, it definitely is a story to tell.
Absolutely. I mean, it is an interesting notion. I was thinking more... For some reason, Mario Odyssey popped into my head when I was thinking about verticality, where...
Okay.
And I haven't even played it, but I've watched enough as to where verticality and just movement in that game plays such an important role, to the point where...
That's true.
I know there's some hidden just secrets in the game that you can only reach by doing an insane jump, and it's weirdly satisfying to know that you were trying to do something that looks like a glitch, and then you land where you wanted to land, and boom, there's a secret there. Developers knew you wanted to do that. Yeah. So that's what I've been thinking in terms of the verticality. So
we're definitely exploring what secrets we can hide and how we can hide them. So players who have a love for jumping puzzles and that sort of stuff are gonna feel super satisfied and find all kinds of fun Easter eggs.
Nice. That is good to hear. So this will do it for this instance of the Q&A podcast. Thank you guys for listening. We will be tackling the remainder of your questions next week. We just need a bit more time to process them and come up with answers that are satisfactory to what you guys are asking of us. So thank you for listening, and we will catch you next week.
See ya.
Bye.
Hey you made it to the end. Congratulations. That must mean you like us enough to want more, right? Well, good news. We're all over the internet. Go to embersword.com and subscribe to our newsletter for a chance to play the game early, as well as the latest interesting tidbits on the game and the team. Join our lovely Discord community over at discord.gg/embersword. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at PlayEmberSword for regular updates on what we're up to. And remember the basics. Drink water, be kind to each other, and spread the word about Ember Sword. Smash that record button.
It is smashed.
Annihilated. Bombed from orbit.
Yeah, it is now gone.
This is an infinite recording. It's all going to Mr. Google in cloud.
Yes.
This is a weird way to start. Okay.